Matt Nagy came out the other day and said that he is going to, in fact, be picking a starting quarterback relatively soon. We should be getting the news hopefully before our podcast next week, and we can talk about the actual decision. But before that happens, we just want to kind of give our own QB predictions, kind of discuss how, training camp worked out and where it's kind of leaving us right now. So, reportedly so far, it's been pretty close. Some say, Trubisky won the last practice for the media. Some say Foles did. There's, kind of some differing opinions there. Reece, why don't you give me your first take? Who do you think is going to end up being the starting quarterback week 1, and who do you think actually deserves that?
I think that the starting quarterback week 1 will be Mitchell Trubisky. I will stand with that and what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. However, I think that it's gotten closer. I think that Trubisky started camp doing better and kind of looked like he was going to be the one that at least deserved to have it. But I think the one that's kind of starting to show that he deserves to have it is Foles. Like you said, there's been limited media coverage. We don't know exactly what's going on, but I think what's going on is I think that in drills, maybe they still look kind of close. I think that Foles has probably stood out there too, but I think that it's everything else and breaking down the tape and everything else where Foles is kind of winning out and, probably stands out a little bit more to Nagy. So I think that Foles honestly deserves it. Will Nagy put Foles in, though, and be the starting quarterback? I'm not sure. I'm still going to go with Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, I'm kind of starting to believe that Nick Foles is the rightful owner of the QB1 position, but I still think that it's going to be Mitchell Trubisky week 1. I know this has definitely changed since our previous podcast where I think both of us gave Foles as our prediction, at the beginning of the, beginning of summer, beginning of free agency,
right,
because we just kind of viewed that this Mitchell Trubisky thing is really over. And then it turns out that it looks like Mitchell Trubisky really showed up to try to, keep his spot. I know the Bears were kind of intentional with what they were showing the media. They were it didn't seem like they were going through full actual gameplay situations. From my understanding, the whole practice at Soldier Field, it was pretty much only situational drills, so that even if you threw a 20-yard completion, you'd go back and it'd be 3rd and 5, and you can't really get into a rhythm like that. You can't really get into anticipation. Obviously, these quarterbacks are going against a defense that they know like the back of their hand, which I think will, once we get to the regular season, Mitchell Trubisky will probably end up losing out on the mental side of the game. But at the end of the day, I kind of fall back on the concept that if you put Nick Foles out there week 1, that's the end. Mitchell Trubisky is done in Chicago. He's never going to be our quarterback again unless Nick Foles gets an injury somehow, or unless he's being our backup next year, which I just do not predict happening. I foresee it being I foresee him being off the roster next year, probably regardless of whatever happens this year, with the exception of him having a 30 touchdown season and beyond. But at the end of the day, exactly what I was saying before, if you put Mitchell Trubisky out, you can absolutely make the change to Foles. You could sell it off to the media, hey, we want to give the incumbent the chance to really win. We want to go with the player that we have a lot of draft stock invested in, the younger player, the player that probably has a little bit of higher ceiling. And then you make the transfer to Foles, and you're like, he lost the job. We gave him the opportunity because it was close, and now Nick Foles is our guy for right now. That is kind of been Nick Foles' role his entire career. So I don't think there's any issue with doing that. And again, look at the Marcus Mariota and Ryan Tannehill situation in Tennessee. How smoothly that went. Mariota started last year, but they were able to transfer over directly to Tannehill. So I think that Mitchell Trubisky ends up starting the season, and I do believe that he ends up losing the job somewhere mid-season.
Yeah, I can really foresee him losing it too. I think that, for a lot of the reasons that you said, you end up giving Trubisky the first shot, see if he can prove it, see what he's done to improve, to move on from a lot of his struggles last year. But, the reason why, you're still clinging on to hope that he can be the starting quarterback is just because of his potential. It's not what he was able to, do last year. In 2018, he had a good season, sure, but, he's put in a lot of really good situations. The defense put him in a lot of beneficial situations, already on the other team's side of the field where it's easier to kind of scoop up some points. As soon as you bench Trubisky, like you said, you're basically calling that the end of an era. There's no other reason after you bench him. You're basically just showing that, hey, the person that we thought had the ability to be our long-term starting quarterback doesn't have it. So, then you pass the torch on to Foles, who, like you said, has been in a lot of situations, very similar to this, and there's a potential of it working out like it did in Tennessee, sure, where, they could potentially catch some fire with him, get some new momentum going off of, that energy of changing quarterback. Kind of makes you a new team. Whenever you change your quarterback, you have a different identity, a different look, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So sure, maybe that's something they could, get going with. But there's really no doubt in my mind that I feel that, the one really more fit to be the starting quarterback, the one that if you were playing, like one game just to win it all next week and you had to pick your starter, I feel like you'd go with Foles if you just wanted to win one game.
Yeah, and I do think that Mitchell Trubisky, putting him up against the Lions week 1 is a positive situation for him. I mean, he's owned the Lions throughout his entire career here. Has not really had any issue handling them whatsoever. So, putting him in that advantageous situation week 1, unlike the Packers games over the past 2 years, might give him a little bit of a buzz he can ride off into the rest of the season with, which could also be beneficial for him there. So, I think that it probably will be the right decision putting Mitchell Trubisky in there. Us Bears fans have the right to know if all this hard work he put in this past offseason is actually going to cement to anything. But if he loses that game, I think that if he even loses that one single week 1 game, no matter what happens, I think that's the end of the Trubisky era in Chicago. If he wins it, he's going to extend it a little bit longer, but I think we're going to have a tight leash on him regardless. And I think, truthfully, Nagy wants to put Foles out there. I really think that Nagy probably wants to put Foles out there, but he feels like he must put Trubisky out there.
Yeah, and that's the only little part of it that I worry about there is because I feel like management and coaching, this is probably going to be one of their first kind of major rifts between, I think that you're completely right. I think Nagy's choice would be the guy that's, more of the system fit, knows things a lot better. Like we said a lot, that Trubisky wasn't really someone that Nagy wanted to work with from the start. So I don't think Nagy has much qualms moving on from him. And I think that, in a certain way, Pace wants to see, kind of hopefully give him validation that maybe he'll turn out and be something, or just give him that clarity that he needs to make this move in the offseason if it means that they're finally cutting ties with him or whatever is going on. But yeah, I think that that's the only part that worries me a little bit is I feel like, Pace and Nagy have had a pretty harmonious relationship. And I don't really know if that'll be the case after that. I don't know how ugly this could possibly end up being.
Hey guys, like our video, subscribe, and check out our bi-weekly podcasts on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.